us know that you need to talk to us. Well, it seems like the stuff in Ferguson is finally slowing down a little bit. Last couple of nights, there's been less and less riots going on. I think they're kind of giving out now.
Well, I don't blame them. Have you heard some of the new witnesses that came out?
Oh yeah, from day one, I've been hearing the same stuff. No one else has been listening to it. Everybody wanted to fuss about exactly what the original witness said, but they weren't talking about everything else what the other witnesses said, or even the officer said. But now that more witnesses has come out to collaborate the officer's story, everybody's kind of, well, wait a minute. I tell you what, the liberals sure do know how to pick their martyrs. I tell you that.
Yeah, they sure do. And the police department, I don't understand the whole thing here as far as what the police department goes. But don't you think that they kind of did it to themselves with these riots and stuff also? I mean, think about it. They could have came out real quick with some of the facts they already had, but they kind of wait around. And with today's technology and how fast people react to stuff, when you keep a secret, you kind of put yourself in a position where people start thinking you're hiding things for your own purpose. You know what I mean?
I agree. There was no reason for them to hide the stuff that they've been hiding. They could have come out and told the people what was going on. They could have very easily talked about what was going on. They didn't have to come out on day one with all these military type vehicles and stuff like that. That was uncalled for. They did it, and they did it. Mainly the reason why I think they did it was a show of force. They wanted to show what we have. Look, people, we've got this. We've got all this equipment. We can really put some hurting on you if we want to. Most of the protesters up there were unarmed citizens. You had a few agitators here and there, but and if you really look at what was going on up there, these agitators they had a different agenda on their hand. These agitators.
In fact, only 4 of the protesters I hate using that word because they weren't really protesters, rioters that got arrested were actually from the area. Only 4 of them. And there was, over 100 of them arrested?
Yeah. It's bad. It got bad up there, and I believe that they did. It wasn't helped any. These agitators up there were up there for a reason. We had the Communist Party people from Chicago come in there, and they were there to agitate. They had anarchists coming up there. Yeah, that's really what you want up there in your protest is anarchists and agitators. Yeah.
Well, their main purpose was to use the riots to overthrow the government.
They would have loved nothing more than to just get a whole nationwide thing going on.
Yeah, that's what they're working on. They're trying to beat the news, I believe, because I think the leaders of those agitators knew that there's more to the story than what was being told. And I think they were trying to beat the news, in what was going to come out and everything. I think they're, again, disappointed now because of how much is coming out and their mission was not met.
Exactly. When we look at this situation up in Ferguson, now, when you look back in history, especially in the civil rights movement, there was they were looking for somebody when they were looking for somebody to get behind and push the civil rights movement, the Civil Rights Act. They had to make sure. They said the person that they had as their image, their martyr, basically, had to be someone that has a clean past that it couldn't be used against them. They even actually at one time had another woman before, I think, what was it, Rosa Parks, that was on the bus?
Yeah.
They actually had another woman that was before Rosa Parks that had the same similar situation, but when they started digging into her past before they could use her, they found out that she was an underage, pregnant teenage girl. And they scrapped they scrapped using her as something to push the Civil Rights Act, because they could just come back and say, and use the fact back then people actually had a little bit more, the public view was a little bit more on a moral basis, and a pregnant teenager just was not accepted in the eyes of the public view back then. So they couldn't use her because of it. And so they had to wait, and that's when Rosa Parks started. And this is the same way up here. If they're going to use somebody as a martyr, so-called martyr, that person's going to have a clean history, clean background.
Yeah, and they can't use someone who committed a crime in the process of being the martyr. I mean, that's like something I hear Judge Judy say all the time on TV. You cannot come to court with dirty hands and sue somebody,
Exactly. I mean, it's a tragic thing that what happened to this young man. And I'm sorry, I keep everybody everybody keeps saying that, he was a teenager, he was a young kid and stuff like that. Let me tell you, when I was in high school, I remember many times, that other students would brag about beating up a grown man. Yeah, I got in a fight this weekend at the club, and I'm like, well, you're not even supposed to be at the club. Yeah, but I know, but I beat this guy up. He was a grown man, and I beat him up. I mean, they would literally brag about beating up an older man, not like an older man, but a man in his prime, late 20s, early 30s, and they sit there and start bragging about this. So don't tell me that this 18-year-old, this young man, couldn't have the strength or the ability to beat up an officer, especially if you catch him off guard. The whole story was that the cop told him to get off the road. He didn't get off the road. He pulls over, starts to open the door. They kick the door on him, pushing him back inside the door in the deal. And from there, the guy went and had his face taken care of. They said his face was swollen from being pounded on. There was one story that come out that he had an orbital blowout, eye socket blowout. Now there's some other reports that didn't really happen on that, but until we get the doctor's report, we don't know. So we're looking at leaked information that he had an orbital blowout. That socket around there is not easy just to barely hit and blow out. That takes some pressure to do.
Yes, it does. Well, and this, whether he had orbital eye blowout or not, the main thing is the officer got beat up. And one story I also heard is that the kid did get off the road, but then as the officer was getting ready to drive off, that's when he got the report and a description of a person who just robbed a convenience store. The officer then stopped and got ready to get out, and that's when the young man came over, Mr. Brown came over and slammed the door shut when he tried to get out. He then tried to get out again, and that's when he slammed the door again and then opened the door and then went in. But whatever the story is, both of them shows that this gentle giant wasn't so gentle, and he was definitely a giant.
Yeah. I mean, we look at this, and then it also looks at his mentality at the time. He just robbed the store, okay? He just manhandled the clerk. And now he's walking down the middle of the street. Cop comes up. Well, what is he thinking right then? Oh, man, these people called the cops.
Yeah.
So his adrenaline is already pumping right now because of the fact that here comes a cop. He's telling me to get out of the road. I mean, he's got all kinds. If you commit a crime and you're sitting there and a cop shows up and you don't know if you got away with that crime or not, if a cop pulls up behind you.
Right.
And
I can imagine what his mentality, what was going through his mind. And then if you add to it, he may, we don't know, I'm not making any accusations, but he may already have drugs in his system too, which complicates the whole situation even more because you're not even thinking straight in the first place.
Exactly. There's all kinds of different factors that are playing in right here, and the simple fact is this: he had dirty hands when this situation went down, and the public, just as always, they went down. They did it with the girl up there in New York. They did it with Trayvon Martin. They did it with the Duke Lacrosse boys. They did it with this guy here. As soon as something happens, these civil rights activists jump down there and rile up the crowd to get everybody involved. And they do it every time. And let me tell you, they are intentionally trying to start a riot. They're intentionally trying to set something off nationwide. There's money to be made in racism. Jesse Jackson was up there asking for donations to his church. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I mean, there's no doubt what their purpose of the riots were, right?
Yeah, they make money in this. And I'll tell you, the whole situation is finally phasing out. People are slowing down. All the truth is coming out that this young man was dirty as far as he robbed a convenience store, he beat up the cop, and the fact is that he got shot over it. And then they said, and then the first witness said, the first witness, which was his friend, said that the cop shot him in the back. Well, after the autopsy, even after the autopsy that the parents requested, that forensic, he's the same one that was working with